It started with a whisper across the outer colonies. A ghost signal. Weak, distant, half buried in solar radiation and static, like a scream smothered under cosmic winds. It came from Seraphis Prime, an outpost so peaceful it hadn't needed a military presence in over a decade. A planet known more for its forests of glass-barked trees and luminous flora than anything strategic. Terraformers had transformed it from barren rock into an oasis, with vibrant colonies nestled in the valley lowlands and vertical gardens stretching up the cliff faces. It was a haven for scientists, artists, and settlers who sought a life far from politics and conflict. They had no weapons, no soldiers, only trust that the galaxy had moved beyond the age of conquest. Then came the scream. Distorted audio laced with panic, fading in and out with the failing signal. "They're burning us alive! No provocation, no warning!" A child's voice cut in, high-pitched and cracking, repeating the same word again and again. "Please, please, please," and then, silence. Within the United Earth Fleet's high command, that silence detonated like a warhead. The communications team spent hours filtering through noise, isolating fragments of video. The images that emerged were burned into the minds of every officer who saw them. Sprawling cities turned to ash, towers collapsing under orbital bombardment, armored figures herding civilians like cattle, then cutting them down when they moved too slowly. The attackers were identified with chilling certainty. The Tarkal Horde. No one had heard that name in nearly 70 years, not since the burning of Arkan's Reach. They were believed to be contained, quarantined within their dying cluster of stars. But something had changed. Their ships were faster now, sleeker. Their weapons, devastating. Plasma slicers, biomechanical suits that adapted mid-battle, and wormhole missiles capable of bypassing planetary defenses entirely. But the most terrifying advancement wasn't their technology. It was their intent. The Tarkal hadn't come to conquer or enslave. They came to erase. Seraphis Prime was a test, a message to the galaxy, and Earth heard it loud and clear. Rear Admiral Ayla Wren stood at the center of the Fleet Council chamber. As the footage played in a continuous loop on the massive holodome above her, she didn't blink. The screams, the fires, the laughter of the Tarkal commanders broadcast on open channels, mocking Earth's absence. She let it burn into her memory, branding every image deep into her core. Wren was a warrior from the old guard. She'd led strike groups during the final Andari uprisings and held the line at HD 1897733B when the reactor moons threatened to implode. But this wasn't rebellion or war over resources. This was genocide. She saw it in their tactics, the precision targeting of evacuation points, the intentional destruction of communications relays, the psychological warfare designed not just to kill, but to make survivors afraid to hope. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Counselors whispered. A few wept. But Wren didn't wait for consensus. She stepped forward and said, "We built fleets to defend borders. We built alliances to prevent conflict. But Seraphis wasn't a border. It was our family. And what they did wasn't war. It was butchery. If we don't respond with fire, we're giving them permission." There was no dissent. Earth had made a vow 2 centuries earlier, after the Europa catastrophe, where 17 million civilians were lost due to political hesitation. That promise was carved into the marble of Earth's Hall of Nations. We protect the helpless, at any cost. The order went out within the hour. Every shipyard in the Sol system lit up with activity. From the cradle of Earth to the orbital rings of Titan, the air thrummed with the sound of construction, preparation, and war. The Vengeance Line was born. 36 ships, 3 carriers, 2 stealth flotillas, 11 heavy assault frigates, and at the heart of it all, the UNS Nemesis. She was the product of a black-budget initiative abandoned decades ago. A warship so massive, so advanced, that she had been deemed too dangerous even for humanity. 8 kilometers long, cloaked in obsidian armor harvested from neutron-rich asteroids. Her hull bristled with rail cannons capable of piercing planetary shields and gravitational disruptors that could tear enemy formations in half. But it was her AI core that made her truly terrifying. An evolving intelligence named Omen, capable of predicting enemy movements 3 steps ahead and rewriting its own code to adapt mid-combat. The activation of Nemesis was not done lightly. But it was no longer about what Earth was willing to do. It was about what Earth must do. In orbit, as the massive hangar gates opened and Nemesis drifted into view, the civilian broadcasts cut in across every major colony, station, and outpost. People stopped in the streets. They turned their eyes to the sky or to their screens, watching the black spear of retribution rise from Earth's surface. This wasn't a launch. It was a funeral procession with teeth. Before we jump into this epic tale, subscribe to HFY Chronicles for the most intense sci-fi battles, legendary warriors, and universe-shaking wars. Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button and join the fight. Admiral Wren stood alone on the observation deck as Earth shrank behind them, her voice low but unwavering. They thought mercy was weakness. They mistook peace for fear. But now they'll see what we've been holding back. And across the void, the Tarkal horde, still feasting on the ruins of Seraphis Prime, felt the quiet shift in the dark. The kind that precedes a storm not of nature, but of rage, forged in steel. The Nemesis cut through the void like a blade through silk, its dark hull absorbing the starlight until it seemed to vanish entirely. Around it, the remaining ships of the Vengeance Line formed a tight formation, like wolves surrounding a wounded prey. But the true weight of the battle wasn't just in their firepower, it was in their purpose. Earth wasn't sending a fleet to negotiate, to talk, or even to intimidate. This was not a mere military action. This was a promise fulfilled. Admiral Wren stood at the command center of the Nemesis, her hands resting lightly on the cool surface of the holoconsole. Her face was hard, her eyes fixed on the swirling mass of data that filled the viewport ahead. They were heading straight into Tarkal space, into the heart of their stronghold cluster. No fear, no hesitation. The Tarkal had forced humanity's hand, and now they would learn what happened when Earth's mercy was tested too far. Wren's voice broke the silence. Target coordinates locked. Prepare to initiate Phase 1. The command center hummed as crew members worked in synchronized precision, feeding the data into the Nemesis's AI core. Omen, the ship's quantum intelligence, processed it all. Instantly, recalculating attack vectors, countermeasures, and probability matrices at speeds beyond human comprehension. It wasn't just a ship AI. It was a tactician, a strategist, and a ruthless combatant, learning from every movement, predicting every maneuver of the enemy. The Tarkal wouldn't stand a chance. Ahead, the stars warped as the Nemesis initiated. A full jump, her massive engines pulling the fabric of space itself to drag them across light years in the blink of an eye. The ship didn't simply travel through the void. It bent it, slipping through the folds of reality with a grace that only humanity's brightest minds could have achieved. In the void of space, time and distance became mere suggestions, and the Nemesis was an unstoppable force. On the bridge, Wren held her breath as the stars snapped back into place, and the sight before them made her jaw tighten. The Tarkal fleet loomed ahead, massive ships, their jagged spiny forms blotting out entire constellations. Each ship was a grotesque monument to their race's militaristic obsession. Towering dreadnoughts that bristled with plasma weapons, frigates shaped like enormous predatory birds, and smaller stealth vessels darting between the larger ships, their engines masked by sophisticated cloaking technology. But despite their imposing size and advanced weaponry, the Tarkal fleet had one fatal flaw. They were not ready for the speed and precision of humanity's response. The Nemesis was already calculating their path, each maneuver anticipated, each shift in momentum analyzed. The Tarkal commanders were busy coordinating their ships, unaware of the incoming threat. They had underestimated humanity. Worse, they had underestimated the Nemesis. Wren's voice was steady. Initiate Phase 1. Prepare for orbital bombardment. As the order rang out, the Nemesis's massive weapons lockers opened, and thousands of munitions were loaded into their launch bays. The ships of the Vengeance Line readied their own payloads, each ship brimming with state-of-the-art weapons designed specifically for this mission. Railguns, plasma cannons, tachyon beams. And then, there were the experimental weapons, designed only for this kind of retribution. Phase-shift torpedoes capable of disassembling matter on a molecular level, and quantum destabilizers, which could twist the fabric of space itself to tear apart entire fleets. The first salvo from Nemesis was a precision strike, aimed at the Tarkal command ship, a sleek, nightmarish vessel named Dreadwrath, its hull marked by crimson runes and glowing energy conduits. The Nemesis's railgun discharged with a sound, like the tearing of the universe itself, sending a slug of superconducting material at faster-than-light speeds into the heart of the Tarkal ship. The impact was catastrophic. The Dreadwrath exploded in a flash of light, its core detonating in a chain reaction that sent shockwaves throughout the battlefield. But the Tarkal didn't flinch. They retaliated quickly. Thousands of anti-missile drones launched from the surrounding ships, creating a cloud of fire and debris around their fleet. But the Nemesis was designed for this. Omen's intelligence mapped out every trajectory, every evasive maneuver, and the Tarkal's counter-response with frightening accuracy. The Nemesis didn't dodge, it countered. The ship's quantum disruptors pulsed, slicing through the Tarkal's missile swarm with pinpoint precision, reducing it to nothing but particles. No waste, no delay. On the bridge, Ren's eyes remained fixed on the battle. She saw the Tarkal, ships forming their own battle line, their own plans unfolding. Yet all the while, they didn't know they were already outclassed. The Nemesis wasn't just faster, it was smarter. And it was about to rewrite the rules of war. The battle raged on, but with each passing moment, the Tarkal realized their mistakes. Their weapons were formidable, their numbers vast, but they were trying to face humanity with the same old tactics they had used to crush worlds before. The Tarkal couldn't grasp that Earth's military wasn't just reactive, it was adaptive. Nemesis wasn't just a ship, she was humanity's will. And now that will was tearing through the Tarkal like a wildfire in dry grass. Ren's voice cut through the chaos. Prepare Phase 2. Deploy ground forces. We take the planet. The Tarkal had learned one truth too late. Mercy had never been Earth's weakness. Their restraint was their strength. But now that strength had become a hammer, and the Tarkal were the anvil. The battle above Tarkal 5 reached its crescendo as the Nemesis continued to tear apart the enemy fleet with brutal precision. But Ren knew that the real challenge was yet to come. The Tarkal homeworld wasn't just defended by an overwhelming space fleet, it was protected by a network of planetary defenses so advanced, they made humanity's technology look primitive in comparison. If the Nemesis had cut through the Tarkal's pride in space, now it was time to face the beating heart of their empire, their planetary shield. The ground forces were already mobilizing. On the surface of Tarkal 5, a small yet crucial objective loomed, a facility buried deep beneath the surface of the planet, surrounded by miles of hardened defense systems and defended by thousands of Tarkal soldiers. The facility housed the Tarkal's most devastating weapon, the Leviathan bomb, a device capable of obliterating an entire star system in a single detonation. It was a weapon humanity could never allow to be used, no matter the cost. Admiral, Ren surveyed the tactical map displayed in front of her. The Tarkal defense grid, while formidable, wasn't indestructible. Humanity had prepared for this moment for decades, designing weapons that could cripple even the most advanced planetary shields. Still, Ren couldn't afford to underestimate the Tarkal. This mission required flawless execution, or nothing would stop the Tarkal from retaliating with a vengeance that could erase Earth from existence. All ships, prepare for shield bypass sequence. We go in with everything, Ren commanded, her voice steady, but with an edge that reflected the weight of the mission. Omen, the ship's AI, had calculated the best route to take. The planetary shield, a force field of staggering proportions, was powered by multiple generators scattered across Tarkal 5's surface. The Nemesis would need to strike with pinpoint accuracy, disable the generators, and open a window for the ground forces to land. No room for mistakes. The future of humanity hung in the balance. The Nemesis was not alone in its mission. The Vengeance Line had deployed a full complement of attack craft, sleek, heavily armed shuttles designed to penetrate the Tarkal's defenses and provide close air support to the ground forces. These shuttles weren't just weapons, they were a statement. Humanity wasn't here to negotiate. They weren't here to ask for peace. They were here to destroy the weapon that could annihilate them all. Ren felt the hum of the Nemesis's engines as the ship's engines powered up, preparing for the final push. With a single command, the battle plan was set in motion. The ship's shields flared with intensity as the first wave of energy blasts from Tarkal defense batteries slammed into the Nemesis. The shields absorbed the impact, but Ren knew the real test was coming. As the ship descended into the atmosphere, passing through layers of swirling storm clouds, the air grew thick with the smell of ionized particles. The Nemesis shook violently as the full force of Tarkal artillery targeted them. Yet, even as the planet's defense network roared against them, the Nemesis pressed on. Its hull, a masterpiece of Earth's best engineering, held strong against the assault. The AI's calculations adjusted in real time, realigning the ship's flight path to avoid incoming fire. But it wasn't just the ship's physical prowess that made it unstoppable. It was the firepower that came with it. Suddenly, the Nemesis unleashed its full payload. Phase-shift missiles erupted from the launch bays, disappearing into the atmosphere before reappearing just inches away from their targets. The first wave of Tarkal defense arrays erupted in showers of sparks and molten metal, as the phase-shift missiles tore through them like a knife through paper. The Tarkal had no time to react, no time to recalibrate their targeting systems. By the time they realized what was happening, the first wave of defense systems had been neutralized. The Nemesis continued its descent through the clouds, its weapon systems clearing the path ahead. In a matter of minutes, the tactical grid showed a massive section of the planetary shield network failing. The first breach had been achieved, but there was still the matter of the Leviathan bomb. It was buried deep within the planet's core, protected by a labyrinth of tunnels and heavily fortified structures. "Ground teams, prepare for deployment," Ren ordered, her voice unwavering. The moment the shields were down, the ground forces were deployed. Hundreds of armored soldiers, elite marines, cybernetic warriors, and the best of humanity's forces leapt from the shuttles and made their way toward the surface, their boots pounding the cracked earth as they moved towards the facility. The Tarkal forces fought back immediately. The surface of Tarkal 5 was littered with trenches, barricades, and mines, the last remnants of a race that had once believed their planet was invincible. But now, the Tarkal were no longer the apex predators of the galaxy. Humanity had come. For them, the soldiers moved with purpose, cutting through the Tarkal resistance like a hot knife through butter. Advanced rifles, fusion-powered, capable of firing at sustained rates of fire, mowed down Tarkal soldiers with ease. Drones buzzed overhead, providing support, while heavy artillery cannons placed in strategic locations delivered explosive payloads, cracking open enemy fortifications. But what truly gave humanity an edge were the cybernetic warriors, enhanced humans with mechanical limbs, augmented vision, and reflexes that rivaled those of the fastest predators in the galaxy. They were the tip of the spear, clearing the way for the rest of the forces. The Leviathan bomb was close. Its massive silo, buried beneath a mountain range, was heavily guarded. But the Tarkal had underestimated Earth's resolve. The soldiers pressed forward, relentless, unstoppable. And as they approached the facility, Ren watched from the Nemesis, knowing that every second counted. "Phase 2 complete," Ren said to herself as she looked out over the battlefield. Now, the real fight begins. The fate of humanity was in their hands, and there would be no turning back. The ground forces continued their relentless advance, but Ren could feel the pressure mounting. The Nemesis hovered just above the surface, its weapons still active, targeting and clearing the path for the soldiers below. The air on Tarkal 5 felt different now, charged, thick with the weight of impending fate. Every battle, every step, forward, was a battle for survival. Humanity was carving its way through the Tarkal defenses, but the final obstacle loomed large, the Leviathan bomb. The facility was close now, just a few more kilometers. On the surface, the soldiers moved. Like a well-oiled machine, their movements synchronized with the precision of Earth's most advanced war technologies. The cybernetic warriors led the charge, their enhanced bodies barely feeling the impact of Tarkal plasma fire as they bulldozed through enemy lines. Their reinforced exoskeletons, augmented reflexes, and advanced targeting systems made them nearly invincible on the battlefield. It was said that these warriors could process 100 possible combat scenarios in the span of a single heartbeat. And then there were the Marines, the flesh and blood heart of Earth's ground forces. Clad in adaptive armor, each suit tailored to the wearer's unique biometric data, the Marines were the backbone of the invasion. Their armor shifted in response to the chaos of combat, automatically reinforcing weak points, providing energy shields when necessary, and adapting to the terrain. Each Marine carried a rifle that was as deadly as it was versatile, capable of shifting between modes, firing everything from precision beams to explosive charges. As they marched forward, the battle around them grew fiercer. Tarkal forces, although numerically inferior, had fought with desperation, defending their home with an intensity that only came from knowing they had everything to lose. The Tarkal were no strangers to war, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity. The tactical advantage the Nemesis provided was invaluable. Its orbital bombardment kept the Tarkal forces on edge, disrupting their command centers and rendering most of their defensive systems useless. The planet was on fire. The ground shook, with the explosions of artillery, the roar of plasma blasts, and the shriek of tearing metal. The Tarkal's once pristine cities were crumbling in the wake of humanity's wrath. But still, the Leviathan bomb remained. It was located deep underground, hidden within the heart of the Tarkal capital. A fortress-like structure, guarded by miles of tunnels and layered defenses. The Tarkal had placed the bomb there because they knew no one would dare to breach it. But humanity, relentless in its drive for survival, had come for it anyway. The soldiers approached the facility, its imposing gates now just a few hundred meters away. The entrance was protected by a series of automated turrets and energy barriers that flickered with deadly force, but the cybernetic warriors neutralized them with brutal efficiency. One by one, the automated defenses fell, leaving the path to the facility wide open. But Ren knew that the true challenge lay within the mountain itself. The facility was a labyrinth of concrete and steel, its corridors twisting in every direction. The walls were lined with thick, reinforced plating, and every corner seemed to hold an ambush. Tarkal soldiers, their faces contorted in rage and fear, emerged from hidden tunnels, attempting to slow humanity's advance. But these desperate measures were futile. The Marines cut them down, their armor-clad forms moving like shadows through the halls. The facility's internal security systems, once formidable, were now no match for Earth's military technology. Inside, the atmosphere was cold, sterile, and clinical, a stark contrast to the chaos that raged just outside. The only sounds were the heavy footfalls of humanity's forces and the distant hum of the facility's reactors. As they pushed deeper into the bowels of the complex, the ground forces encountered the final line of Tarkal defense, the Elite Guard, a force specially trained to protect the Leviathan bomb. These warriors were faster, stronger, and more agile than the average Tarkal soldier, equipped with personal cloaking devices and energy blades capable of cutting through even the toughest armor. The battle that followed was brutal. The cybernetic warriors faced off against Tarkal's best, each side matching the other in strength and ferocity. The clash of energy blades echoed through the halls, while the hum of plasma rifles filled the air. Sparks flew as armor met armor, and the smell of ozone mixed with the acrid scent of burned flesh. But the human forces were unrelenting. They pressed forward, their every move calculated, their resolve ironclad. Through the maze of corridors and fortified doors, they finally reached the heart of the facility. And there, bathed in cold, harsh light, was the Leviathan bomb, its sleek obsidian surface reflecting the flickering glow of the room's dim lights. The weapon sat at the center of a massive chamber, surrounded by an array of complex locking mechanisms and security fields. Ren stood at the entrance to the chamber, her eyes fixed on the device. She could almost feel the weight of it. The enormous destructive potential of the bomb, capable of wiping out entire star systems, leaving nothing but dust in its wake. This was the weapon that had brought the Tarkal to the brink of extinction, the very reason humanity had been thrust into war. "This is it," Ren murmured, her voice tight with the realization of the moment. She couldn't afford to hesitate. The bomb was still operational, and they had mere minutes before the Tarkal initiated their self-destruct sequence, a failsafe designed to activate if their world was about to fall. Ren couldn't risk giving the Tarkal any chance to turn the weapon against them. With no more time to spare, she issued the order. "Prepare the demolition team. It's now or never." The soldiers worked quickly, setting up the charges around the Leviathan bomb. They knew the stakes. The moment those charges went off, the bomb would be destroyed, but so would the facility, along with anyone still inside. The decision was clear. There could be no hesitation. The demolition team made the final preparations. The seconds stretched into eternity as the countdown began. Outside, the Nemesis hovered above the planet, waiting, ready to provide support in case things went wrong. But this was it. The final moment. Ren's eyes narrowed as the timer ticked down. "Let's end this," she whispered to herself. The explosive charges detonated with a deafening roar, sending shockwaves through the facility. The walls cracked, the ceiling above them groaned under the pressure, but the Leviathan bomb was no more. Humanity had secured victory. But in the quiet that followed the explosion, Ren couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. The battle was over, but the war was far from won. The Tarkal had been defeated, but other threats loomed on the horizon, and the true cost of this victory had yet to be realized. The Nemesis lifted off the planet's surface, its mission complete. But as Ren looked out over the burning remains of Tarkal 5, one thought echoed in her mind. Humanity had shown the galaxy that when pushed to the edge, they would fight back with a force unlike any other. The Tarkal had targeted the helpless, and now, Earth's fleet had arrived without mercy. As the Nemesis ascended from the smoking wreckage of Tarkal 5, Ren stood in the command center, staring out at the planet she had just helped to bring to its knees. The view from the observation deck was breathtaking in its destruction. A once thriving world, rich in resources and home to a proud civilization, was now a testament to humanity's resolve. Cities lay in ruins, entire ecosystems had been scorched, and the scar of battle marred the surface. The Tarkal's empire had crumbled, but Ren knew that victory was not as sweet as it seemed. The thought lingered, gnawing at her as she turned her attention to the hollow screen in front of her. The Nemesis was making its way to a new destination, an unknown system on the edge of the galaxy. The mission was over, but the war was not. The Tarkal had been the first, but they would not be the last. The Federation knew it. Ren knew it. The universe was full of dangers, and humanity had only just begun to show the galaxy what they were capable of. "We've done it," Lieutenant Torres said, breaking the silence. He stood beside Ren, his voice low with a mix of satisfaction and fatigue. "Tarkal 5 is gone. The Leviathan bomb is neutralized. We've won." Ren didn't respond immediately. Her eyes were locked on the swirling void outside the ship. The vastness of space seemed almost infinite now. An endless canvas of stars and planets, each hiding its own stories, its own potential threats. The Tarkal had been brutal, and their death toll was staggering. But Ren understood one truth, that many of her comrades didn't. Humanity's strength was in its unity, and that unity came at a price. "The war might be over for now, Torres," Ren said, her voice tinged with both exhaustion and resolve. "But we've only fought one front. There are more out there. More who will come after us." Torres looked at her, his brow furrowed. "You think the Tarkal were just the beginning?" Ren nodded slowly. "I know they were. The Tarkal were ruthless, but there are others out there who have even more advanced weapons, greater numbers, and far more ambition. We've barely scratched the surface of what's out there in the galaxy, and if Earth's enemies are watching us now, they'll be planning. We have to stay vigilant." Her words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of truth. The Nemesis continued its journey, cutting through the cold expanse of space, heading toward the next objective. But in Ren's mind, the path ahead was unclear. No one could have predicted the war with the Tarkal would unfold this way. An all-out, brutal conflict fought in the stars. But in the aftermath, there were only more questions. What if the Tarkal had been a prelude to something far greater? What if the galaxy had been watching, waiting for a moment like this? What if humanity's victory over the Tarkal made them the next target for the galactic powers that lurked beyond the known systems? As Ren stared out the viewport, her mind shifted back to the decision she had made on Tarkal 5, to destroy the Leviathan bomb. It had been a choice with no easy answer. Thousands of Tarkal lives had been lost, but they had not been innocent. They had brought destruction to humanity's door first. And yet, a part of Ren couldn't shake the nagging thought, could they have found another way? Was this the only path to victory? Would their brutality come back to haunt them in some unexpected way? The Nemesis slipped further into the void, and the question still lingered. Ren's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden flash on the ship's radar. She frowned as she turned toward the tactical officer. "Sir," the officer's voice trembled slightly. "We've detected an unknown vessel, far ahead of our current trajectory. It's enormous." Ren's gaze snapped back to the screen, her heart racing. She could see it now, a massive silhouette against the stars. The ship was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. Its form was sleek and angular, its surface reflecting the light of distant stars in a way that made it seem almost ethereal. The vessel seemed to pulse with an energy of its own, as if it was alive. It was a living, breathing force, and it was coming for them. The crew went silent, the realization sinking in. The Tarkal had been just the beginning. The ship on the radar was a sign, proof that they were not alone in the universe, not by a long shot. "Open all channels," Ren ordered, her voice steady despite the growing sense of dread. "This is Captain Ren of the Nemesis. We're on a peaceful mission. Stand down and identify yourself." There was no immediate response. A tension-filled silence settled over the bridge. The unknown ship grew larger as it approached, the shadows of its form looming ever closer. In the stillness of space, Ren's words echoed through the ship's corridors. "This is it. The true test has begun." Without warning, the massive ship opened fire. Beams of pure energy shot across the void, faster than the human eye could process. The Nemesis rocked as the first blast hit its shields, sending tremors throughout the ship. But the crew was trained for this. The Nemesis's weapon systems immediately came online, retaliating with a barrage of missiles and plasma cannons. The two ships exchanged fire in a deadly ballet of energy and metal, each side attempting to outmaneuver the other in the zero-gravity battlefield of space. Ren's heart raced as she gave orders, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Return fire! Deploy all point defense systems. We need to cripple that ship before it gets close." The unknown vessel's counterattacks were relentless, and the Nemesis rocked again as another blast slammed into its hull. The ship's shields flared, but they were weakening. The crew knew this would be their hardest battle yet, and the stakes had just been raised. Ren's thoughts raced as she issued commands, her mind calculating their next moves. They had faced the Tarkal and conquered them, but now they were facing an entirely different foe, one that might not care about diplomacy or about any of the fragile alliances humanity had worked so hard to build. This was no longer just a battle for survival. This was a fight for the future, and Ren knew one thing for certain. Earth had just taken its first steps into the larger, more dangerous galaxy. The Nemesis might have destroyed the Tarkal, but the galaxy would not stand idly by. There were forces at play far beyond Earth's comprehension, and if humanity was to survive, they would need to do more than just fight for their lives. They would have to fight for their place in the cosmos. The universe had been watching, and now humanity had become a player in the grand game. Would they rise to the challenge? Or would they fall like so many before them? The Nemesis fired again, its weapons lighting up the dark void of space. This was just the beginning. Thank you for joining me in today's epic journey. If you enjoyed this story, please take a moment to like, share, and comment below. Tell us what you think will happen next, and share your thoughts on Earth's fate in this vast, unpredictable galaxy.